Thank you so much for your company tonight. It's now 3 minutes past midnight. Gordon Smart here. Now, we are going to be talking about music with a man who has it flowing through his body. His hips hop, he has jazz hands, and if you ask him very nicely, he'll show you his ska. The word musicologist has too many syllables, which is why we call him this.
Weeknights with Gordon Smart.
Yep, it's Dr. Beat himself, and if anybody can count the doctors in there and submit the correct answer, then you will be forever in awe. It's Dr. Beat himself, Dr. Joe Bennett from the Berklee College of Music in Boston. We're going to spend the next hour in his company, and he's chosen a subject and a suitable playlist. Hopefully we'll find out more about the music we listen to, why we like it, and here he is, the great man himself, on stage tonight, all the way from Boston. It is Joe Bennett. Good evening, Joe.
Hey, Gordon, great to speak to you.
It's great to have you on, Joe. It really is great to see you this week. I did miss you last week. Did you have a good one on Monday? What were you up to last week? It was chord progressions, wasn't it?
Yeah, we were looking at chord progressions, and Stefan was very accommodating, and I actually had a couple of problems with my microphone, which was as annoying as anything when I listened back on BBC Sounds, but we fixed all those gremlins for this week. But yeah, we were looking at chord progressions, and it's, you know, the most common chord progression in pop, which is the 1-5-6-4, so the guitarist might know that as C, G, A minor, F, sometimes called the Axis of Awesome chord loop, because there was an Australian a big compilation of them a few years ago. So it's much loved and still in. I learned that actually Taylor Swift, you'll find it on my Instagram channel, has 22 songs that use that exact same chord loop. It's nearly 10% of her output. So yeah, we got deep into the music theory, but as you know, Gordon, I try and mix it up. If we do one that's about lyrics, I try and do something that's about geography or artists or whatever. And this week we are going to be looking at a very specific musical instrument, and it is, drumroll, the Fender Stratocaster, perhaps the most famous electric guitar design of all time.
Absolutely fantastic, Joe. Love it. It's going to be great to talk about the guitarist tonight, but the question for you, I'd imagine, is about who you leave out, isn't it, tonight when it comes to the Strat?
Oh my goodness. Well, as I think I told you in a past show, you know, I used to work for a guitar magazine back in the 90s, and there was a time when there was always some Strat player in the featured in the mag, and there are just so many, particularly in the sort of what you might call the golden age of rock, sort of late 60s through mid 80s. With all deep apologies to fans of Deep Breath, Eric Clapton, Kurt Cobain, Rory Gallagher, Buddy Guy, Buddy Holly, Yngwie Malmsteen, Eddie Van Halen, and Corey Wong of Wolfpack as a contemporary player. And there are just so many. Even with that list, I've left a ton out, I'm sure. So we've tried to sort of touch some of the bases of the most influential players with our choices tonight. But yeah, I do feel the need to apologise in advance to everyone whose favourite Strat players have been left out.
I can already feel the messages coming in. But Joe, I'm sure you've selected wisely. And that means we've got a quiz tonight, as we always do. So everybody who's listening, this is your moment to have your pen and paper ready. And also a digital device that you can enter the quiz with. 85058 on text, 08085 909 693. So Joe, tell us about the quiz and take it away.
So the quiz is simply a whole bunch of Strat riffs and solos. So these are songs that famously contain a notable Fender Stratocaster part, usually performed by the main songwriter and artist themselves. So I'm going to give you the year, and you already know the fact that it was played on a Fender Stratocaster, but I think because these songs are so well known, even though I'm playing it backwards, I've got high hopes for a few 5 out of 6 and maybe even a couple of 6 out of 6. So let's jump in. Here we go. Question 1. This song was released in 1978, and you're going to hear this bit of the guitar riff played backwards. Question 2. This song was released in 2006 and it is an American artist that did play a Fender Strat for a long time, and certainly on this recording. 2006, question 2. For question 3, this song was released in 1973 and the band featured 2 guitarists, one of whom regularly played a Strat. And it is a Fender Stratocaster that plays this intro riff. Name the song, 1973. Question 4. This is a bit of prehistory here. This is a track from the early 60s, from 1960, and it's an instrumental track, and I'm looking for the title of the song. So anything else you might associate this with, don't say that. The answer I'm looking for is the title. Question 4, 1960. Here's the Strat part. Question 5. This is a recording from the early 1970s. Oh, what the heck, I'll give you the year. 1972 for question 5. And it's a rock track. And this is a little bit of the riff. And finally, question 6. This is a rock quartet from 2006. And this is the Strat part. Question 6. Kind of love that backward Strat sound. I want to sample it and make some beats out of it. So there we have it, Gordon. 6 questions. You have the year, you have the instrument. Name the song.
Excellent. 85058 if you'd like to get in touch. 08085 909 693. And Joe, remember we've got that album that has to be released at some stage during this pilgrimage that we're on together. So maybe that backward Strat could be the next track that we do together. I say
I'm
together.
Down for that.
You do.
You know what? I've never heard your voice played backwards, Gordon. I'm going to sample the show, and we're going to create some psychedelic effects with that, I think.
I think it probably makes more sense backwards than it does forwards, Joe. But brilliant stuff. 85058. Remember, if you'd like to get involved in the quiz, we will give you a bit of a recap at about 1:45. Joe, you mentioned you had a bit of trouble with your microphone last week. Just remember, you should sack the roadie for that. It reminds me of a great story. Marquis Smith from The Fall once sacked a roadie because he didn't like the way he ate his salad. I think we're not going to have that kind of diva worship on this show right enough. But have you any good stories of roadies over the years, Joe?
Well, you know, I was visited by the police after a gig in my early 20s. I didn't used to have enough money for an amp stand for my amp, so I used to pile my amp up so that it was at head height on whatever objects I could find to hand. You know, beer crates is the classic, and I piled them up on one of these copper tables that they had in the working men's clubs. And then Andy, who was my sort of driver and helper at the time, my sort of college buddy, he and I drove home, and having done the gig, thought no more about it, and I'd done another gig with my amp piled on all these copper working men's club tables. And the next morning, 2 coppers showed up at the door and said, the club says they want their table back. And so I don't know what the heck had happened. Somebody had nicked a table from the Working Men's Club. I don't know how they'd even achieved it. But because someone had seen me on stage with my amplifier on top of these metal top tables, they thought that I was the thief. So they'd called the club and looked up the agency and found the band lineup and said it was the guitarist and sent the cops around to my house. So that's the only sort of roadie story I have. Gordon.
I was going to say, Joe, is this an elaborate on-air confession that we're finally hearing all these years on?
Maybe I need the amnesty. Okay, I'll give it in. Here's the table.
It was Joe. It was Joe all along. Right, excellent stuff. Now, I'd imagine a few of the characters you'll hear from this evening have got a colourful past as well, with a few brushes with the law. But we're going to start at quite a sensible level of Stratocaster fame this evening. And it does, of course, start in the US with the one and only Buddy Holly. But in the UK, there's only one place we can begin, with one of the most distinctive sounds in popular music. Have a listen to this. Word, Joe, I'm so sorry, I might have to say it, but it's iconic. I'm sorry, Joe, I'm really sorry. In 1959, that was the Shadows and Apache, and we are, of course, talking Hank Marvin here, aren't we, Joe?
Absolutely. You know, if Buddy Holly was the US's first sort of Strat hero in the late 50s, then Hank Marvin was definitely the first British one. In fact, according to some sources, he actually had the first Strat in the country, purchased by Cliff Richard for him. So what I like about that as an example is it's not only historic and very sort of important in bringing the Strat to the people, it also is a great sort of technical showpiece for a thing that the Stratocaster could do that its sort of sister instrument, the Fender Telecaster from the same company, could not do, which is the famous whammy bar, sometimes called the whammy bar, sometimes called the tremolo arm, vibrato arm. And basically, if I can just do a quick demo here, if I take a note, hang on, grabs guitar.
Excellent. This is my favourite thing. That's one of my favourite catchphrases on radio. Grabs guitar.
Hang on, grabs guitar. So we play an A, and we can bend it down a little bit, and then back up again. And we can bend it up by pulling on the bar. And we can strum a chord, and you can hear it just gently shimmering there. And of course, if you push the bar all the way down, you just go all the way down. Now, Hank Marvin's wonderful skill was to use that effect, the vibrato arm, the tremolo arm, with a delay effect, a tape-based delay effect, so that as one bit of the note was going up, another was going down due to the echo, and you get this really thick, fat sort of shimmering effect that everyone associates as the sound of the shadows. And it's a combination of Marvin's skill with the tremolo arm and the delay effect, making it sound so rich. And there's been Guitar Magazine articles for decades about how to get the Hank Marvin sound. It's and it's still, you know, it's 1960, that record, and it sounds so beautiful even today.
Was he the first to do that then, Joe? Could he really claim credit as making something new, unique with that technique?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's certainly fair to say that no one had really heard the Strat in hits using the whammy bar quite so much. There were Bigsby tremolos, and there were other bits of similar technology around in the late 50s. But the Fender design of movable bridge was kind of new technology when it was introduced in 1954. And Buddy Holly, who we mentioned earlier, did not use it. He was kind of strictly rhythm player, and he was, although he played a Strat, he didn't sort of play lead with the whammy bar in quite the delicate way that Hank Marvin did. So it's a different approach to the instrument. So yeah, as far as I know, and certainly in terms of popularizing that sound, the combination of whammy bar and delay, Marvin's your man.
Yes, and you mentioned that all those articles were written about the noise he created, but would you say he's one of the most influential guitarists ever to live? Is that fair?
Oh my goodness! I mean, certainly because he was so early. I mean, we're going to look at so many. Every single one of the guitarists we're going to listen to tonight was and is influential on the future generations. I wouldn't like to pick one because I fear I would make enemies in the guitar community. But certainly this started, and there are so many pop stars. You know, this is before the Beatles. So there are so many people of the Beatles generation and older who said that, you know, when they heard Apache, it blew their minds so much that they really wanted to get an electric guitar. So many people tell that story.
Right, Joe, can you get the pub quiz question right? Do you know his real name? Do you know Hank Marvin's real name?
Oh, my goodness. Brian... Rankin? Rankin.
Correct.
Brian Rankin, I
Correct.
think. Is that right?
That's right. Brian Robson Rankin, born in Newcastle. There you go. I'd give you a point for that one in the pub quiz, definitely. Well done, Professor Joe. Excellent stuff.
Put me on the spot there, Gordon.
That was good. I did, didn't I? I really put you on the spot. You did well. You did very, very well. Right, that was class. Had a bit of Hank Marvin there. And we're going to move forward in time. 8 years, right? So in terms of the sound, it's going to feel like we've moved on a few decades, though. It's amazing how far music could go in that short spell of time. So from one influential guitarist to another. This is Jimi Hendrix and the Wise Mary. Absolutely magical at 20 past midnight. Loved it. Joe, what can you tell us about this one then?
Well, when people talk about Hendrix as a guitar innovator, it can be very tempting to pull out the effects pedals, you know, and look at the amazing guitar sounds on Voodoo Child, Sly Return and Purple Haze and all those sort of big in-your-face rock classics that are all fuzzed up with just amazing soundscapes. But what I love about The Wind Cries Mary is it's kind of all in the fingers. It's just guitar playing. And it's an almost clean guitar sound, at least on the rhythm track there, and then with the solo as an overdub. And it's not the sort of searing in your face part of Hendrix's personality as a guitar player. It's the sort of subtle playing around the song, evocatively creating still a sound world, but as I say, not so much using electronics as just playing it out of the instrument. So it's so you get that lick that's and he has that that's a really Hendrix kind of a lick to play in the bottom of the chord, sort of sliding onto the major third of the F there. I'm not going to dare to play any other licks from it because it would be too sacrilegious, because he has a feeling for those licks that's just, nobody does it like Jimi, even though they're not in that track, they're not simple chords, so they're not particularly complicated chords, they're just simple shapes, but he's all over the fingerboard and he chooses just the right voicing. Beautiful guitar sound, beautiful playing, and of course a great vocal. I actually only learned quite recently that it was an apology love song to his girlfriend Kathy Etchingham. The story goes that he wrote the lyrics after an argument with her that apparently she had cooked lumpy mashed potatoes. He complained. They had a row. And it's an apology song, The Wind Cries Mary, and Mary is Kathy Etchingham's middle name. So that's where it comes from. I didn't actually know that story until very recently.
Oh, that's a lovely, lovely story. It was all the mashed potatoes' fault. You know, one of my favourite things at the moment in social media is watching incredibly talented guitarists playing famous songs, but through the filter or the style of another musician. So, you know, here are 3 or 4 famous songs, but through the prism of Jimi Hendrix, and you're like, that's the Jimi Hendrix trick that you've managed to do. It's magical to watch. But Joe, you know, as somebody who understands this and the theory of it, is it an easy thing, that sound? Is it an easy thing to replicate?
Well, it's partly guitar tone, and like I say, I chose The Wind Cries Mary because it's a more pure Strat straight into amp sound that we're hearing. But the reason that it's recognizable as Jimi Hendrix at least in that part we were listening to there, isn't particularly the guitar sound. And, as I say, I worked for Guitar Magazine for years, and there was always the how to get that tone. And of course you can replicate the amp settings and choose the number of windings on the pickup electronics, and all of that. Guitarists are obsessed with tone, and we love to talk about it because it's part of the instrument working with the effects processing and the amplifier. But of course the thing that creates a guitar sound most of all is none of that. It's the player. So yeah, you really have to have a handle on not only his pitching and phrasing, but his timing, his micro timing. In The Wind Cries Mary, there's some moments where he just pulls the tempo back and forth. And in these tracks in the 60s, because of course they were a power trio, the tempo would fluctuate quite a lot as the band are following each other. It's almost like a jazz band doing that, which it kind of doesn't happen at all in contemporary pop, because everyone plays to a click track, and there are good reasons to do that in the studio. But I think one of the reasons that people love those Hendrix Experience records is because of the sort of organic nature of your feeling that there are three musicians in a room just vibing off each other.
It's amazing to think The Wind Cries Mary, it was a B-side on Purple Haze, June 1967, a song that was so good it didn't belong as an A-side. So there you are. And I don't know if it's true or not, but I'd always read that he'd only started playing the guitar as a 15-year-old. So if you think in a decade to go from picking up a guitar to that level of virtuoso talent, it's remarkable, isn't it, Joe? Because he was only a young man when he passed away.
Yes, very sadly. And he's... I think a lot of the reason that he progressed so far, so fast with technique in his 20s was he was a session player. He played for the Isley Brothers and he played for Little Richard in the backing band, just sort of doing what he was told. And then, when he came out as Jimi Hendrix and the Hendrix Experience, it was sort of studied. He decided he wanted it to sound that way, and was, as all reports say, very exacting over every part of the show: the showmanship, the costumes, the effects, the sounds, stage setup as well. So yeah, I think he was always damn good, but made better by the fact that he was used to the discipline of playing what was needed for other artists as well.
And Joe, for years I've been wondering if somebody could explain to me the science behind this, right? The musicology behind it. But everyone knows it was a right-handed guitar, turned upside down, restrung for left-handed playing. That wasn't just about the way he wanted to play. It was about the sound, wasn't it? It's something to do with the top notes and bottom notes.
Well, right. So the sound was an outcome of it. That guitar was bought for him, and so did the guitar come first, and then he developed the sound and played around it, or did he decide he was going to play? As far as I know, it was the guitar that was available. So if I, with apologies to all the listeners who can't see this, if I hold this guitar up to the camera, Gordon.
Yep.
You can see that it has three pickups, and two of them are straight, and one of them is kind of at an angle. And what that means is that the treble and bass frequencies are picked up differently from the bridge pickup. So when you reverse string it, as you have to as a left-handed guitarist playing a right-handed instrument, the frequency pattern of treble and bass spread across the strings is reversed. And so it means that the highest string has a darker sound and the lowest strings have a slightly brighter sound, which is the opposite of Leo Fender's intended design. So Hendrixologists will muse about this for ages. In physics terms, it does make a small difference, but not as much of a difference as the fingers of the guy playing it. That's really what it's about.
I cannot wait to try and explain that myself the next time it comes up in a pub conversation, but I'll do my very best, Joe. Maybe I have to keep a clip of that on my phone at some stage. Brilliant, though. We've had some Jimi Hendrix, which is a real treat at this time of night, and we've got another treat for you now, because we're going to move on to the 1970s and a very different sound from a very different type of guitarist. This is Chic, featuring Nile Rodgers, and the song is Le Freak.
1, 2, freak out. Le freak, c'est chic. Freak out. Freak out. Le freak,
There we go, Nile Rodgers, Chic and Freak Out. Joe, what do we need to know here then? There's some lovely, lovely stories behind this song in particular, but it's a lovely bit of guitar as well.
Oh, it really is. And this is, this is Nile Rodgers' signature style. He has a classical music degree. He is very well trained musician. So when everyone says, oh, he just does that Nile Rodgers thing on every record, well, he kind of does. But his Strat is referred to as the hit maker. That's the name of the instrument. And there's a reason for that. And I think very, very early on in Nile Rodgers' career, he's actually on the record as saying, he wanted to move the heart of a million strangers. So he started his career sort of playing for the musos, trying to impress the jazz cats at the gig, and then realized that, why not just write stuff that lots of people will like? And so that's his very percussive style of guitar. And so you're strumming up and down 16 to the bar, chicka, 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 chicka. So there's your 4, chicka, 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 chicka. And sometimes you pick the notes, and sometimes you create an unpitched mute. That is to say, you just put your fingers across the fingerboard while strumming, but you don't actually make a sound. So let's see if I can do it as a sort of an example of it here. Let's set up a sort of a sound that will do this. So you can hear that, like, some of those notes are sort of and some of them are strums. And so what Nile Rodgers does, and he's absolutely the master at doing it, is to create funky syncopated rhythms by effectively squeezing some chords so you hear the chords and muting others so you just hear a percussive sound while you're still hearing 16 to the bar. So it's a bit like sort of drums and guitar in one instrument. And it's on Get Lucky, it's on all the Chic hits. It is very much his signature sound. So I wanted an example of, and Strat it's not the first go-to instrument for rhythm guitar necessarily, because as you can hear, it's very bright, it's very trebly, it's kind of cuts through a mix. And what Nile Rodgers managed to do was really take advantage of that characteristic of its single coil pickups, the sort of pickups that pick up the sound from the string moving in the magnetic field. They have a very bright tone naturally, and he makes that a percussive element of the track, and you hear it on pretty much everything he does.
That's the thing, Joe, we've covered a lot of ground so far, haven't we, in the different styles, but is that the secret, do you think, of the Stratocaster, that it is a versatile instrument? Although you say it's not always an obvious choice as a rhythm guitar, but it does seem to have a lot of versatility.
Yeah, let's go there a minute, Gordon. Let's talk about the actual sound of the instrument. So as I said, it has 3 pickups, and you can select them. You have a selector switch on the front of the body. So if I play the same chord here on the neck pickup, the middle pickup, and the bridge pickup, you should hear the sound getting brighter with each strum. So here's the neck pickup, and the middle pickup, and the bridge pickup. So basically, you're picking up the string's vibration at a different point along its length because of the position of the pickup in the magnetic field. But you also have a tone roll-off, which is a sort of knob on the front where you can take all the treble end off because it's so naturally bright. So here's something, something a little bit jazzy with all the tone rolled off. So that's really, it's called a low-pass filter. It just takes all the high frequencies off. But the Strat kind of, it's so many lives. In the 80s, a lot of people got into percussive picking, so really attacking the strings, quite aggressively playing single short staccato notes. And that creates a sort of a quacking noise. Let's see if I can do it here. So that's, you can hear that, again, I'm just playing 16 to the bar licks there. But a lot of blues and rock players, of course, love to put it through distorted amps and fuzz pedals and the like. So it's notably, it can sound great, but again, very bright if you use it for sort of rock and blues. Here's a bit of that. No, of course, as you know, Gordon, I'm a child of the 70s, and, I love anything that is sort of a bit spacey and has lots of effects pedals on it. So that brightness can really cut through. So if I switch on here, let's have a phaser and a delay and do some picking there. And, it's so, yes, sonically you can get a lot out of it, but its character, I believe, still shines through all of that. Whatever else you do to it, you can still hear that distinctive stratiness, that sort of clang at the start of the note that's very much characteristic of the instrument.
Yeah. Well, Joe, that last little musical interlude, if my ears are correct, might introduce our next bit of music, because there's probably a listener rebellion coming on if we don't play something by Dave Gilmour, or David Gilmour if you want to be very polite. Comfortably Numb, Pink Floyd, The Wall album, and for those who have specified, it is the second guitar solo. Have a listen to this. Second guitar solo, Pink Floyd's Comfortably Numb, David Gilmour. I remember my big brother played the piano when we were younger, and our music teacher, a guy called Mr. Clemson, the late Mr. Clemson, said, if you can master this piece by Debussy, then you can call yourself a piano player. Joe, if you master that solo, do you think you can call yourself a proper guitarist at that point, that Gilmour solo?
I can't say I never mastered it, but it's it's just obviously and I'm going to use the word darn it. What an iconic track. It's as you say, there are two guitar solos there. It's in terms of the licks he's playing, it's largely sort of B minor pentatonic shape, so it's sort of a classic. We looked at pentatonics in a previous show, so it's a sort of a classic approach to the instrument, but the timing, the pitching, the phrasing, and Gilmour guitar solos, they always have like a journey in them. He doesn't throw all of the tricks at you in the first bit. It sort of builds, and it has a natural shape to it. So, yeah, there's so much to love in there. And, I mean, obviously the nature of Pink Floyd songs of the 70s is they're all kind of long, so maybe it's not the ideal thing for an hour-long radio spot. Gordon. I wish we could do more.
Thoroughly enjoyed it. And for the guitar aficionados, they'll know big muff distortion, delay effects on the solos. There's a lot going on, isn't there? But Joe, when you were learning to play the guitar, I'd imagine there was a lot of time spent trying to copy Gilmour, because that is a talent, isn't it? That particular style.
Yeah, I because one of the things when you learn to play lead at the start, the guitarists will know this, you learn the pentatonic box shapes, and you sort of think, oh, great, I'm going to have a go at those big Pink Floyd solos, because they're all chord loops, so they're very satisfying to jam over if you have a backing track. But of course, simply learning those box shapes and those notes is not the same as being able to play like Dave Gilmour, because all the aforementioned subtleties of the playing, the pitching, the vibrato, the timing, the bends. It's very, very difficult to get that sound sort of authentically, we might say.
And expensively as well. The guitar, I think it was a black Strat, wasn't it? 2019, auctioned for charity, $3.9 million. One of the most expensive guitars ever sold at auction. And it was a bargain for you, Joe, wasn't it, on that money from Berkeley College that you spent?
Yes, the Boston banks were lacking money that week.
It was vital for the education of those students, Joe, I would argue. Excellent. It was great, and we'd love to have more time with Dave Gilmour, but you've got so many great tracks here. We want to move on, Joe, because before we get to the quiz recap, we're up to 1994 now. We've skipped through the decades here, and the evergreen Bonnie Raitt, and this is called Love Sneaking Up on You.
And might as well try to stop the rain, stand in the track of a runaway train. Just can't fight it when a thing is meant to be. Come on, let's finish what started with me. Hey, don't worry, baby, ain't nothing new. That's just love sneaking up on you. If your whole world's shaking, baby, feel like I do. That's just love sneaking up on you. Hey, don't worry, baby, ain't nothing new. That's just love sneaking up on you. Whole world's shaking, feel like I do.
Right, Gordon Smart here on 5 Live with Dr. Beat himself, Professor Joe Bennett. Tonight we're looking at the Fender Stratocaster, and that was Bonnie Raitt, Love Sneaking Up on You. So Joe, why have you chosen that one? What is it about Bonnie, the song, and a bit about her as well, that makes this so special?
Well, I mean, she's just been around for so long doing correction, but Miserlou is the name of the song, 1960. I hope that every rock fan would have got number 5 because it's one of those riffs. It's still kind of recognizable backwards. The guitarist was, of course, Ritchie Blackmore on his Strat, and the song 1972, Smoke on the Water. And finally, for number 6, the track was from 2006, the guitarist John Frusciante, and the song was Snow, Hey-O by Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Hey-o, listen what I say, I got your...
So, how did people do, Gordon?
Right, Joe, you'll be delighted to find out this evening nobody has managed 6 out of 6. Plenty of 1s, plenty of 2s, plenty of 3s, but let's give some special mentions for the 5s out of 6s. So Mog and Vanessa, you've done well tonight. 5 out of 6. You stumbled on the Red Hot Chili Peppers, but you got the other 5. Well done. Ruby in Aberdeen. I think I heard Sultans of Swing, Sweet Home Alabama, Miserlou and Smoke on the Water. You certainly did, Ruby, but you didn't get 6 out of 6. Paul, the guitarist from Worcester, he's got 4 out of 6, 5 out of 6. Congratulations to you, Paul. Sultans of Swing, Sweet Home Alabama, Miserlou, Smoke in the Water. Kieran, nearly there, but not all the way. Ashley managed to get 5 out of 6. Didn't get number 2. Hardlines Ashley, close but no cigar. And Jimmy in Sheffield. And Jimmy, I should tell you, Joe, you'll appreciate this. It's spelled Jimi. And yes, named after him. You've done pretty well, but you've just missed out. Gordon and Dr. Beat, apologies if the order is wrong, but I'm at work and I'm hiding trying to answer this. I didn't know the double Strat one, I'm sorry, but that's 5 out of 6 from Jimmy in Sheffield. So well done, not a bad effort. So congratulations everybody tonight. But Joe, you are the winner. Dr. Beat, congratulations.
Oh
You
my
have flummoxed
goodness,
the
I
audience.
thought the Chili Peppers fans would have aced it there. It was 2006,
Yep.
not all that recent, but okay, flummoxed a few people, but 6 questions and 5 out of 6, a very respectable score.
It's a good go. Right, Joe, a couple of other things that we've got here. One of the answers to tonight's quiz references Mr. Young. I would love Joe to turn his attention to do a week on just how underrated Neil Young is. That's from Peely in Middlesbrough. Do you reckon that could happen, Joe? Is there enough in Neil Young?
Well, you know, I love the Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young material as well as the solo stuff. You know, I do love a great vocal harmony. There's a lot to enjoy there, so certainly.
Excellent. And Joe, the most famous Strat ever has to be Rory's. I think, is that Rory Gallagher's story?
Rory Gallagher,
goes that it was sold for over €1 million just this week, and that's Phil in Ebbowvale. Thank you very much, Phil. Joe, thank you tonight. Loved it. Great to have you back on, and I'll catch you next week.
Looking forward to it. Talk then, Gordon.
Here he is. Dr. Joe will be back next week. Come and join us from midnight. Thanks for getting involved tonight. Dotton's up next. I'm back tomorrow. See you then.
The voice of the UK.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.